Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to tell you another well-known love story from Irish folklore, the legend of Diarmuid and Gráinne. Our story begins in a time long gone by, when Fionn MacCool and the Fianna were the greatest warriors in Ireland, known to mankind and fae alike. They hunted, fought and won battles and wars, and all in all had a good warrior's life. But as the years went by, Fionn's son Oisin grew into a man and became one of the Fianna himself, and left with a mysterious maiden named Naomh. And Fionn himself slowly began to grow old and also restless. All day long he spent at his castle near the warming fireplace. No hunting trip, no battle could satisfy Fionn anymore, and he asked himself what he's missing. It wasn't until long that the Fianna recognized that something was off with Fionn, and so one day the Fianna thought of a plan to help their leader become his old self again. And what better way to do so than to search for a new wife for him, a young and beautiful one that would bring back the happy days of his youth. Well knowing that Fionn had a growing uneasiness with the High King of Ireland, Cormac MacArt, and also knowing that the High King had a beautiful daughter, the Fianna's plan was simple. Ask the High King for his daughter's hand in marriage for Fionn, and so show him Fionn's loyalty and solve two problems at once. Cormac MacArt was delighted to hear the proposal of the Fianna and agreed to give his daughter's hand in marriage to Fionn. He went on to tell his daughter of the engagement and describe Fionn as the hero he was. And so his daughter Gráinne, who only vaguely remembered Fionn from her childhood days, was delighted to soon meet her new famous young and heroic husband. But when the day of the great feast before the wedding on Tara came around, and Gráinne first laid eyes on Fionn, her happy husband-to-be, her delight vanished. She saw a man with white hair and beard, older than even her own father, even though it might just have been a few years. The feast itself was wonderful. All of Tara came to see the hero and the daughter of the High King being wed. There was fine food, the best wine, wonderful music, and laughter all around. The only one that didn't seem to be happy was the bride-to-be. Gráinne couldn't help but tried to find a way to call the wedding off. Under no circumstances would she marry an old man like Fionn, hero or not. Lost in thoughts of how to avoid the marriage, her gaze fell upon a young and handsome warrior of the Fianna. She innocently asked Fionn who that was, and Fionn answered that this man was indeed Diarmuid O'Donnell, his lieutenant and one of his finest men. As she kept staring at Diarmuid, he gazed back at her, and in that moment Gráinne knew it would be him and no one else, and she began to form a plan in her head. She waited until all guests were gone for the day, and before the celebration continued the next day, she mixed a potent sleeping potion into the beverages of the guests. Of all guests, but Diarmuid. And so, it didn't take a long time until Fionn and all guests were sound asleep, and Diarmuid wondered what was going on. Gráinne approached him and bluntly told him that she wouldn't marry Fionn, but that he, Diarmuid, should be hers, for she loved him. Diarmuid couldn't help himself but also feel love for Gráinne. But on the other hand, he was loyal to Fionn, and to take his fiancée would be a betrayal he would never dare to commit, and so he refused. But Gráinne wouldn't accept a no. Desperate to avoid the marriage with Fionn, and desiring Diarmuid as her husband, Gráinne pleaded again and again, and was denied by Diarmuid each time. In her desperation, she did the only thing that could help her now, and casted a powerful gaze over Diarmuid. What is a gaze, you ask? Well, A gaze is kind of like a spell. Once cast, it's like a holy vow the bearer can break. The gaze laid upon Diarmuid now was to take Gráinne away from Tara. And so Diarmuid faced a hard decision, betraying Fionn or acting against the gaze. And the gaze was simply stronger. And so Diarmuid fled with Gráinne from Tara, knowing that Fionn's anger would be immeasurable. And he should be right, for when Fionn woke again and learned of what had happened, he was furious and instantly sent out his best men to hunt down the unfaithful couple. The couple fled through all of Ireland, while the Fianna chased them mercilessly. Over hill and dale they fled, not able to sleep in caves with only one opening, not able to eat where they cooked or to sleep where they ate. Instead, they had to keep moving to always stay ahead of the Fianna. But they were not entirely alone. The god Angus MacOak, who was also Diarmuid's foster father, always kept an eye on the couple. Still, the couple had to run and run. The pursuit lasted for weeks, months, and in the end it became a year since the day in Tara. But Fionn's anger never cooled down. Still, how close the Fianna might have catched up, either through Diarmuid's wits or the help of Angus MacOak, the couple always managed to escape. But whatever happened, Diarmuid, even though still not able to defy the gaze, was still determined to stay loyal to Fionn. And so, every night they rested, Diarmuid left behind a clear sign for Fionn to find, to signal to him that he and Gráinne had not joined in love. Much to the displeasure of Gráinne. She was so displeased that when they one day crossed the river and a bit of water splashed up between her legs, she mocked poor Diarmuid, saying that even the water is braver and more manly than he is. And so Diarmuid gave in, for he too desired Gráinne, and no more signals of virtue were to be found for Fionn. One day they entered the forest of Davros, in which the legendary tree of immortality was said to be found. The tree was guarded by a giant named Servan. Servan didn't mean harm to the two lovers, and even was friendly towards them. He would let them hunt and live in his forest, under one condition, that they would not touch the berries of the tree. But Gráinne suddenly started to crave for the berries of the tree, more than for anything else, for she was pregnant with Diarmuid's child. And so, despite better knowledge, Diarmuid tried to please his love, and to pick the berries from the tree for her. But of course, Servan wasn't pleased to see that, and a battle between the two men arose. Servan was skilled in the ways of magic, and so none of Diarmuid's weapons could harm him. But Diarmuid was witty, and in his desperation he turned Servan's own club against him, and so killed the giant there and then. Finally, the two lovers were free to eat the berries, especially the sweetest on top of the tree, and so they climbed the tree to the top. But while they rested there and enjoyed the berries, Fionn and the Fianna found the tree and saw the giant slain. And Fionn knew that only Diarmuid could have slain the giant, and he was sure that Diarmuid was still hiding in the tree. And so he and the Fianna camped under the tree and waited. In the meantime, Fionn challenged one of his Fianna to a game of Vigil, an old Celtic chess-like game, and both sat under the tree to play. Diarmuid, a very good and passionate Vigil player himself, was tempted to help Fionn's opponent, and at some point just couldn't resist to throw a berry at the point on the board where the opponent should make his move. When Fionn saw that and got beaten by his opponent, he knew that there was only one player able to beat him in Vigil, Diarmuid. At this point, there are two versions of what had happened next, but in both versions the lovers could escape with the help of Angus MacOak, either by fighting in the tree and throwing down a body, which Angus magically let appear like Diarmuid, or by Diarmuid leaping down from the tree, running, while Angus hid Gráinne in a cloak of invisibility. Either way, the lovers escaped and continued fleeing throughout Ireland. Meanwhile, Angus MacOak visited Fionn several times on behalf of the two lovers and asked Fionn to give up on the pursuit and to let the lovers be. All in all, he begged Fionn 7 times and was denied every time. It was only when Angus also contacted Gráinne's father, the High King Cormac, and he also started to plead to Fionn on Gráinne's behalf, that Fionn reluctantly gave in. On the outside, it looked as if he had calmed down and lost his wrath, but on the inside, he still remained angry. Diarmuid and Gráinne were finally able to settle down, somewhere in County Sligo, in the lands of Diarmuid's father, and to live in peace. They lived a happy life and had 5 children. The family had a happy life for several years, until Diarmuid met Fionn again. They both were on a hunt for a wild boar, Tog Triath, who caused damage in the vicinity. After a long hunt, brave Diarmuid was able to use his magical spear to fatally wound the boar. But in doing so, he fulfilled an old prophecy he had long forgotten. It was said that he would someday die by the hand of a boar, and truly, before Diarmuid was able to kill the boar took its revenge and wounded Diarmuid too. Blood flew from his wounds, and it looked as Diarmuid was about to die, and so he begged Fionn to help him, for Fionn had healing hands, and if Diarmuid was to drink water from his hands, he would be saved. And so Fionn ran to the next river to get water, but 2 times he got it, he thought of his anger against Diarmuid and spilled it all on the way. It was only the 3rd time that he was able to overcome his anger, remembering what a great friend Diarmuid had been for so long. But when he arrived at Diarmuid, it was already too late. Diarmuid was dead. In the end, Fionn had gotten his revenge, but no one knew if he really enjoyed it or regretted it. For with the 3rd try, he was willing to save his old friend, but it was too late. Gráinne was heartbroken to learn that her beloved Diarmuid had died, and so it wasn't until long until she too died of a broken heart. The lovers were buried right next to each other, and remain like that until this day. It is rumoured that Diarmuid died in County Sligo at the Ben Balban, and it is also there that the lovers should have found cover in a cave during the pursuit. Well, in fact, you'll find dolmen and places bearing the names of the 2 lovers all over Ireland, for all of these places might have been places where the 2 lovers have found shelter during their years of chasing. And so, the love story of Diarmuid and Gráinne lives on until this day. Thank you very much for listening. If you like this video, please leave a like and hit subscribe. Do you have a favorite legend from Celtic mythology? Let me know in the comments down below. See you next time. Bye!